Oops. All right. Hi, guys. Good morning, and welcome to the Zebra Marketing Show, where we talk about marketing topics to help B2B companies and cybersecurity, IT, tech, oil and gas to help put in place systems that can help them grow their business, get predictable sales and hockey stick growth so they can meet their goals. My name's Laura Camrath. I'm the CEO of Zebra Marketing. And today we're going to talk a little bit about why your pipeline feels unpredictable even when your team is busy. And if this conversation is helpful for you, if you find value in it, please like, share, drop a comment. If you have any questions, certainly drop a comment. I will be back to look at the comments and answer any of your questions. And I also invite you, if this seems like something that your team could use a little help with or you'd like to improve, um, uh, you can drop a comment and let me know. And I will be back here to, check the comments, of course, like I said, and would love to hop on a call and talk about what you and your company are doing and how we might be able to optimize it so that you can get even better results. All right. So let's jump right in here. So, why your pipeline feels unpredictable, even when your team is working hard. Yeah. So, we all think, oh, we just need to work harder. We need to, call more people, follow up with more people, go to more conferences, whatever it is. But most companies don't struggle because they aren't working hard enough. They struggle because their growth systems aren't working together. And if you think of it kind of like sort of the cogs in the wheel are turning, if the gears aren't quite aligned right, they're not going to be turning the way that they should be. So the real effort, the effort is real. You guys are putting in the effort. Your team is doing what they're supposed to do, but the alignment is missing. Busy doesn't always mean productive. So, we can scoop spaghetti all day long and it's not going to help us meet our sales goals. Many leadership teams mistake activity for progress. So, if we're not doing the right things, then no matter how hard we work at it, it's not going to help us get to where we want to go. So everyone, when this happens, the team is fully occupied, everyone is working hard, but the pipeline still feels inconsistent. So consider what's really happening across your organization when that's the case. The sales team's busy. They're chasing deals, they're logging calls, they're handling follow-ups. And often they're doing this manually and they're trying to remember who they need to call or when they need to call them. Maybe they're writing sticky notes. I don't know about you. I'm kind of bad about sticky notes myself. But you know, this is what happens, when we don't have an organized system. So marketing is busy, they're generating leads, they're launching campaigns, they're producing content, but there isn't a clear feedback loop. Maybe we're not measuring the results. Maybe we're not seeing the results that we are looking to see and the ROI we're looking to have. And customer service is busy. They're onboarding, they're renewing, they're expanding, and oftentimes maybe customer service is siloed from the pipeline or sales pipeline conversation entirely. They're sort of dealing with the customers down the road once they're already coming in. So the problem isn't usually effort. It's disconnected systems, siloed departments, and that let effort leak out without producing predictable results. So, what actually creates an unpredictable pipeline? Most companies have growth happening across multiple disconnected channels, each working in isolation, few working together. And so here's a typical picture of that. There's referrals and partners. Referrals are great, they're warm leads. So word of mouth and partner deals come in sporadically with no structured follow up process. You know, Referrals can be a bit unpredictable because, we don't know when somebody is going to refer us. And oftentimes we're not actually asking for referrals. I mean, how hard would it be to actually ask for referrals? And that's something that we can automate as well. And automated campaign maybe that runs once a quarter and sends a note out to your audience, your email list, and just lets them know that you love referrals, and maybe talks about some customers you've worked with that were successful and they were referred, something like that. Just to remind people that referrals are great. Um, Website and paid ads, digital inquiries and inbound traffic arrive but often disappear without proper nurture sequences. So, a lot of us think like, oh, we just need more traffic to the website. We need more traffic to the website. But, what happens to that traffic when it gets there? Is there lead capture on your website? Is there something for them to do where they can opt in and you can get their contact information and continue to market to them? We now have the technology to be able to capture their information if they don't even fill out a form. And, if they don't opt in for something on your website, do you have something in place to make sure that you can still follow up? Visiting your website, they must be interested or they wouldn't be there. So, they're a warm lead. They already know at least enough about who you are to visit your website. So you don't want to lose that traffic. And especially if you're paying for traffic to get people to your website, you want there to be something for them to do or to be able to capture their info and continue nurturing them after they leave. Because, like we've talked about before, it can take 7 to sometimes 20 touch points for someone to decide, hey, this might be the right company to help me. So then we have LinkedIn and cold outreach. So outbound efforts, outbound would be like, cold calling or cold emailing or cold LinkedIn messaging. Outbound efforts run independently from marketing, creating duplicate or contradictory messaging. So if your messaging is not aligned, and maybe sales is doing cold calling, but maybe their message isn't quite aligned with what the marketing team is publishing, it can lead to confusion. So, making sure that everything is aligned, that your message is aligned, that your sales team is aligned, that your, sales conversations are aligned with what people are seeing in your marketing, you know, helps to helps reduce the confusion and make your message clear, because confused buyers don't buy. The easiest thing to do if something is confusing is to do nothing. And so we don't want people to do nothing. We want people to take the desired action. We want people to get started with us. So, spending some time and making sure that sales and marketing and your messaging are aligned. And then events and webinars, high effort channels that often lack structured post event follow up, wasting valuable intent signals. So, this could be like, there are plenty of companies who, they schedule a booth at a trade show, they go to a trade show, but they don't have a pre event plan for the trade show. They oftentimes don't have a during event plan for the trade show, and they don't have a post event plan for what they're going to do with all of the people who they met at the trade show? Are they going to follow up? Are they going to make an offer? Is there something special that only people that they saw at the trade show get? Or even, invite people to hop on a call and learn more. You know, when when we don't ask people to do what we want them to do, chances are they aren't going to do it. So, sure, there are going to be some people who just go ahead and do it anyway, but we don't want to put all of the effort on the customer. We want to make it easy for them. So, having these things all aligned, having our gears aligned so that the wheels are turning together is where we want to be. So each channel can produce results on its own, of course, but when you don't connect them, you can't build predictable pipeline from them all together as a system. So the hidden cost of disconnected systems. Disconnected systems don't just create frustration, they create real revenue leakage at every stage of the funnel. The breakdown is often invisible until it's too late. So, marketing generates leads, campaigns run, traffic comes in, forms are submitted, but what happens next is inconsistent. So, we're getting leads and we're not following up with the leads. Or people are making inquiries and they're not getting sales follow up. That's what happens when our wheels are not aligned. So sales follows up differently every time. If there's no standardized process, that means that each rep handles leads their own way, creating wildly different buyer experiences. So if we don't sit down and think about our sales process and how we want that sales process to go, every salesperson is going to interpret it in their own way and they're going to do their own thing. And of course, when everyone's doing their own thing, it typically results in inconsistent results. And when marketing is doing their own thing and sales is doing their own thing and each salesperson is doing their own thing, you can imagine that it can result in a bit of chaos. So, these are things that you want to think about in advance and you want them to be aligned. And then CRM data becomes incomplete. Without automation, representatives skip logging. Incomplete data means leadership can't see what's actually happening. So if your sales people are not consistently logging their interactions, what happens if that salesperson leaves or something, heaven forbid, happens to them? What would happen then? Is all of the information, is all of the history of what's going on with your prospects, is it in their mind or is it in the CRM? And what happens if that prospect calls in and the salesperson who was handling that account is not available, and then there are no notes about what's going on in the CRM? That could be a little bit embarrassing. If nobody currently knows what's happening and you have to say, oh, sorry, Bill Smith isn't in today and you're going to have to wait till he gets back. So having a CRM with consistent logging with the information is in there. And, there are systems, the system that we use, if we call the customer, it makes a record that we called the customer. And then when we're done calling the customer, it says, how did that go? Did you leave a voicemail? Did you reach them? Did you, what occurred? So that it's never like, oh, when was the last time we called this person? Or, are they in the sales pipeline? Because if you have a sales opportunity pipeline in your CRM, then deals aren't falling through the cracks because as soon as a deal is generated, it gets added to the pipeline. And then it stays there until it reaches some sort of a conclusion, which is either Um, Deal won, deal lost. Um, Maybe it was tabled. Maybe you're having trouble getting through, or they said, hey, call us back in 6 months. That's not a lost deal. That is just one that's on pause. So you don't want opportunities slipping through unnoticed. That we can call it like the leaky bucket effect. So we're spending money on sales and marketing on the front end, and then prospects are going cold, or nobody follows up, or it's just too late and the window has closed. So, no reminders, no visibility, no recovery. The pipeline just quietly shrinks. And the cumulative result is the pipeline becomes impossible to predict. Not because deals aren't there, but because no system is reliably catching them, or the system isn't adequately catching them. So, if you think like your buyer, buyers rarely move directly from awareness to purchase. In reality, they follow a long, non-linear journey, and most of it happens without your sales team's knowledge. First, imagine this is your prospect. First, they go out and research. So they know they probably have a problem. They know that something is going on, they have a problem, they need a solution. First, they need to understand the nature of the problem. So they research. They go out and they start reading Google, LinkedIn, review sites, maybe visiting competitors. Maybe then, they're reading blog posts or white papers or Reddit. They're reading, they're going out, they're reading, they're researching the topic. So then they turn to their peers. They start asking people, hey, do you know anything? Have you ever had this happen? What did you do? They validate with colleagues and communities, often shortlisting vendors before a demo is booked. So if their friend at their other company says, hey, I used these guys and they did a good job, then the customer might go check out that company's website. And, so they're starting to learn like who is the right company to help us, who's the right partner to help us solve this problem. So they're evaluating competitors. They're looking at webinars, case studies, pricing pages. Buyers are deep in evaluation mode before they raise their hand. So they are comparing, what we call the consideration set, which is the set of competitors or set of companies or vendors who they would likely consider to help them solve this problem. And then they talk internally. They have to build consensus with their team and their management and see, um, what different team members' opinions are, and build the case for doing what they think is right. So if they think that hiring your company is right, they have to be able to substantiate that and build consensus with their team so that they can hire you. And, all of this may actually occur before you're even in the conversation. So you may not know that all of this activity has gone on until they actually give you a call or fill out a form on your website asking for some help. So, you're basically, most companies are currently, they come in at the very last step. And single touch point doesn't represent the full journey. So, all of this activity, it's like the Titanic and the iceberg. Like they could see the little top of the iceberg, but the real buying cycle was underneath the water, which is what, punctured the Titanic. You had this huge iceberg underneath the water and only a little bit visible above the water, above the surface of the water. So, most companies are still seeing just the little bit that's sticking out above the surface of the water, which is basically the end of the journey, where they've pretty much decided already without ever talking to you who they want to do business with. So, wouldn't it be nice if you could actually influence their buying decision before they make their buying decision. And we can do that now. So if you're mapping the buyer journey, you're understanding where your visibility ends and where buyer activity continues. And that's the first step toward building a predictable growth system. Awareness. You start with initial recognition of a need. So, it starts with just knowing that they need help with something, and knowing that your company even exists and helps with that. The next stage is they start to research, gathering information and options. Then they start comparison. They start weighing alternatives and features. Who would be the right, what do we actually need? What is it we actually need to do to solve this problem? And who actually does that? And, who does it better, or who maybe does it worse? Hopefully not you. But the evaluation is assessing the fit and feasibility. They're forming an opinion. So first we need to know, who can actually help us with this. And then we need to know, like, who can actually do the things that we need them to do effectively. And then we have to form an opinion about who the best person to help, best company, best partner to help us with this is going to be. And then once we've essentially made our minds up about, maybe our short list of who those companies are, now we reach out and say, maybe we reach out to the top 3 and say, I'd like to have a conversation and see how you can help. So most B2B teams have strong visibility starting with the conversation phase, but little to no insight into the first 4 stages where buyers' intent is actually forming. Closing that blind spot is where predictability begins. So where you have visibility is in the conversation, proposal, customer, the stages that your CRM likely captures. So once they maybe download a resource from you, or hop into a webinar, or engage with some of your content or something, then you can capture their information and that they're in the market. But all of the steps that you see here on the screen are where the blind spots are for most companies right now, is awareness through evaluation, where the buyers are active, they're forming opinions, and they're choosing whether to even contact you, or even shortlist you for a conversation. So what is it about the manual process that's creating bottlenecks? Manual work doesn't just slow things down, it creates conversion gaps. So each small gap compounds across hundreds of leads per month. So, and in B2B, maybe, I don't know the lead volume you're dealing with, but the moral of the story is that, every little inconsistency, every little gap, every little space where somebody doesn't follow up, or that they don't follow up in a timely manner, or that a client has an inconsistent experience, or what sales told them wasn't what they thought they knew in marketing. Every one of those points is a gap, and a point at which the deal can take a different turn. And so you can imagine these things are compounding. If they're happening, then every time something like that happens, it adds up. So what do those conversion gaps look like? Perhaps we have leads being assigned manually. Routing delays mean leads go cold before a rep even sees them. So if the salesperson doesn't find out about the lead until maybe they've already made a different decision, that deal is closed before you even get a chance. So, we have now what is called speed to lead. It makes sure that every lead is followed up with, that people are booked into appointments when they're interested, when they make an inquiry. And so your sales team isn't having to do all the manual effort to just get an appointment booked. We've got no follow up reminders, which is, do we have an automated sequence? Follow up frequency depends entirely on the individual rep or discipline. If there's no nurture, what we call nurture, then it's completely reliant on your sales team. Did they remember to follow up? So automating perhaps, a series of emails to them that talks about all the amazing things that you do for your customers and all the amazing results you've achieved to make them say, wow, I need to find out more about these guys. They seem really good. Not to mention, you don't want them canceling their appointment if they have booked an appointment. Oh, actually, we've decided to go a different direction. I'm sure you've all heard that. Oh, well, we didn't even get a chance. What happened? So, you don't want that to happen. CRM not updated. So, yeah, it's like a pain in the butt to update the CRM. And, oh, I'm heading to lunch and I just don't have time. So, leadership has no idea what's going on. And, the other reps in the sales team, like we talked about before, if Bill Smith went to lunch and one of his clients calls in and nobody else has any idea what's going on with that account because everything's in his brain, that's not really helping. So, he's not going to have a good experience when he calls in because, what do you mean nobody knows what's going on? And then event and partner follow-up is inconsistent. So if you're spending money on trade shows or, entertaining clients, or if you're spending money on webinars or online events, any of that, and they're not getting an appropriate follow-up, you're wasting money. You have money leaking out like water leaking out of a leaky bucket. So, filling those holes, closing that gap, making sure that your events have consistent follow-up. And then website visitors disappearing. If you have anonymous traffic with real buying intent leaving your site without any engagement or retargeting trigger, people visiting your site and that's the end of the road, they don't fill something out and you have no idea who they were, you didn't have the opportunity to capture their info or be able to follow up. You've got a gap, you're leaking traffic. So every small gap reduces conversion. Multiply that across your entire funnel. So if every stage there's a little bit of leakage, then by the time you get to the end of the road, then maybe the bucket is only a quarter full when it could have been all the way full if the holes would have been plugged. So this is why we want connected systems, because connected systems create predictable growth. If every gear is turning in the machine at optimal speed and connectedness, your machine is going to be running optimally. You want all of the gears rotating at the same speed, that all of the gears are rotating together and they are turning the machine, they are turning the wheels. So the shift from unpredictable to predictable pipeline doesn't require more tools. It requires better connections between the tools you already have. When each stage flows into the next, nothing falls through the cracks. So, how do we plug the holes in the leaky bucket? We make sure that all of our gears are working together, all of our wheels are turning at the same time, and everything is working in a system. So systems beat siloed activity all day long. So visibility, we want to increase reach to attract target audiences. We want to respond, capture interest, and prompt initial actions. We want to nurture, build relationships through targeted engagement. Nurture helps you build trust. Nurture helps you open doors. So If someone expressed a small interest, like coming to your website, you want to nurture them, offer them more information, let them know how amazing your customers have said that it is to work with you and all the great results that you have achieved for your customers. And let them know, educate them about what you offer and how it produces ROI, how it helps them reduce risk, all of those things. Um, Nurture helps open doors. So when doors open more easily, it's easier for sales to do their job. So convert nurtured prospects into customers. So if the doors are opening more frequently, then, instead of spending time trying to cold call or, you know, breaking down doors, your sales team is taking inbound leads. They are taking calls with people who are calling in saying, "Hey, I know that you can help me with this. Let's see what that looks like." And so it just becomes so much easier for your company overall to grow your revenue. Automation doesn't replace people. So, especially now in the AI age, we're all like worried about AI taking our jobs and AI replacing our teams and, all of these things. So this is a common misconception that automation is all about replacing human connection, and it is not. Automation removes the repetitive work so your people can focus on what only people can do, building real relationships. So think of AI and automation like assistants. They're helping your team um, get more done, be more productive, and taking the repetitive stuff off of their plate so that your team can handle the real human interactions that build trust and build relationships. So every lead receives a follow up. No more leads falling through the cracks because a rep was busy or a reminder was missed. And then every opportunity is tracked. Deals move through the funnel with visibility at every stage. No more, "I thought you were handling that." It gets handled. And then every customer journey is measurable. You can see what's working, what isn't working, and where to invest based on data and not instinct. So when everything is working, everything is tracked, you know what is working. So you can optimize. If you don't know what's working and what's not, maybe leads are coming in, or maybe you think we're getting less leads, or this month we got fewer leads and last month we got more. We don't know what's happening. Well, oftentimes we don't know what's happening because we are not measuring what's going on, and we're not measuring the entire system. So we get inconsistency and we don't know why. When we become data focused and we measure, we understand why things are happening. So when we know what is producing better results, then we can do more of that. And our system can become even more effective. So consistency creates predictability. When your systems handle the repetitive work reliably, your team can show up for the moments that actually require a human touch. So, here are a few questions that every leadership team should ask. Before you can fix your pipeline, you need an honest assessment of where your systems stand today. So, these 6 questions are a good place to start. Number one, where do opportunities come from? Can you attribute closed revenue to specific channels, or is the source mostly unknown? Number two, where do prospects tend to disappear? At which stage does your funnel show the biggest unexplained drop off? Number three, what happens after a website visit? Do you have any structured path for capturing or re engaging anonymous visitors? And four, how quickly do you respond? What is your actual average lead response time, and how does it vary by rep or channel? And number five, where are your biggest bottlenecks? Which handoffs between teams or systems create the most friction and delay? Are your systems helping or creating more work? Do your tools save time and surface insight or add data entry burden with little payoff? So, if you think about these six items, sit down and actually answer these questions for your organization. Um, and you might find that it's very revealing. And you might find that maybe you have some gaps. And that's okay. All of us have room for improvement in our business. It's just the nature of being in business. It's when we actually sit down and take the time to identify, what is going on and, um, actually take the steps to plug the holes in our leaky bucket. That's when we really start to see true revenue growth. So, a practical framework for predictable pipeline. Predictable pipeline isn't created by one tool or one hire. It's created by better systems built intentionally. And here's a 6-step framework to get you started. So, first, map your buyer journey. Document every touch point from first awareness to closed deal from the buyer's perspective, not yours. Everything is customer centric. So, what is actually going on? What are the steps that a prospective customer actually goes through with your company from perhaps even the research stage to making an inquiry or engaging with you to actually closing the deal? And that is your buyer journey. And at the end of the day, marketing exists to move people along the buyer journey. So if you don't know what the buyer journey looks like, how are you going to use marketing to move people along it? So the first step is knowing what your buyer journey really looks like and sitting down and thinking about that. Maybe there are gaps in your buyer journey. So taking a look at that is super important. Number two, identify every handoff. Find the transitions between teams, tools, and stages where leads slow down or disappear. So, making sure that the buyer journey, what is the customer experiencing, that is consistent. And where is it that you're losing leads or losing deals, or the deals drop off or the customers stop responding? Where are the holes in your leaky bucket? And then ties automating sorry, the highest frequency, lowest value tasks first. Routing, reminders, and data entry. What can you take off your team's plate? If it's a repetitive task, they really don't need to be doing it right now anymore. We have automation, we have AI. These things can be automated and taken off your team's plate so that the humans can do what only humans can do, which is build relationships and trust. But if they're spending all of their time doing data entry or, you know, trying to manually follow up with people or doing all these things, their time is, you know, being spent doing other things than high value human oriented tasks. So taking a look at that is super important. Number 4, connect your systems. Make sure all of your gears are turning in concert and connected. Ensure your marketing, CRM, and customer service platforms share data in real time. No manual exports required. So, if you're exporting data once a month, then you have like an entire month's worth of time where nobody's looking at that data and the ship can go off course. All of a sudden the Titanic is veering into the iceberg and you don't find out until it's too late. And then you sink. Okay, don't sink. But you get the idea. So Number 5 is measure what matters. Define 3 to 5 pipeline metrics that signal health. Conversion stage, response time, source attribution, or where the lead came from. So measuring, so important. Again, if you're only measuring once a month, the ship can go off course and you don't find out until it's too late. So, checking in with your numbers, actually collecting the data and knowing what's going on so you can respond in a timely manner and correct course. Number 6 is improve continuously. Review your systems at least monthly. If you're not reviewing them monthly or more frequently, you can run into big problems. Small iterative improvements compound into significant pipeline gains over time. So if you are reviewing your numbers, hopefully more than monthly, continuously, and you are paying attention to what is working and what is not working, you can course correct consistently, do better in all of these departments. So if you're plugging the hole, imagine like you plug the hole at every one of these stages, then, at the end of the month, your bucket is full. You're not leaking leads, you're not leaking deals. Those deals are getting concluded to a sale. And if at every stage you plug the hole and you close the gap and the lead moves along to the next stage in the buyer journey, then before you know it, you have more closed deals and your revenue is growing and you're meeting your targets. And that's where we want to be. So continuous improvement. So most companies don't need to work harder. They just need their systems to work together. So it's not about just like we need more effort. It's getting everything aligned, all of our ducks in a row, all of our gears turning in concert with each other so that we have a machine that's working for our business and not sort of siloed departments doing their own thing or even individual employees doing their own thing because there's no system in place. So when visibility, automation, marketing, sales, and customer data become truly connected, growth stops feeling like a guessing game. You stop reacting to surprises and start leading with confidence. Connected visibility. You see every stage of the buyer journey, not just the last step. So like we mentioned, the majority of the customer, decision-making process happens before they even contact you. So having a system to be able to find out who is searching for you, who is visiting your website, who is looking for the services that you offer. And then so you can market to them before they have made up their mind. And then connected systems, marketing, sales, and customer service data flowing in real time, not siloed. And then predictable growth. Revenue you can plan around, forecast with confidence, and build on. So this is what predictable pipeline looks like. It looks like having all of your gears turning at the same time in the machine so you have a predictable sales pipeline machine that is working consistently for your company month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And this is what we help people build. So we help people build machine, we help people optimize the machine, we help people build predictable pipelines so that they can enjoy hockey stick revenue growth month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. So if this resonated with you, if you recognize that there may be bottlenecks in your team, in your organization, that there might be disconnected channels, there might be some unanswered questions, there might be some room for improvement, let's talk. And I will be happy to help you identify where your growth systems may be creating friction and where a few targeted improvements could unlock meaningfully more predictable pipeline. So, identifying those gaps, identifying those bottlenecks, because if you don't know where they are, how are you going to fix them? So, if you would like to talk a little bit more about, closing the gaps in your organization, comment system, and drop a comment below, and I'll reach out directly and we can hop on a quick call together. So, feel free to send me a direct message as well if that is how you would like to reach out. Shoot me a message, and we can find a time to dig into the gaps at your organization, where are your bottlenecks, what's going on, and how can we help plug those holes in the leaky bucket so that you can make sure that you have a predictable pipeline, that your sales are coming in and you're closing deals and you're growing your business. So let's hop on a call if that's something that you'd like to do. And otherwise, thank you for joining me here live. I'm here live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. talking about different topics to help you be more successful in growing your business with today's modern digital marketing and marketing strategy, AI, automation, and all of that great stuff. So please hop back in next Wednesday at 11. I look forward to seeing you there. Again, my name is Laura Camrath. I'm CEO of Zebra Marketing. We help B2B companies to put in place systems for predictable sales and hockey stick growth so they can grow their business and be wildly successful. All right. I look forward to seeing you all soon. See if we can go back to so you can here we go. There we are. All right. Thank you all so much for hopping in. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I look forward to hopping on a call if that's something that would be helpful for you. Thanks a lot. Bye.